Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the International Film Festival Rotterdam. My name is Rafa Salas-Ross. I am a film critic, journalist, and programmer, and it is my absolute honor to be here tonight hosting what is surely going to be a great conversation with two of my favorite filmmakers working today, Carla Simón and Kleber Mendonça Filho. Their latest films, Romería and The Secret Agent, are playing here at the festival, so please do make sure to catch a screening if you haven't yet. And just as a note, we will open for questions of the audience towards the end of this conversation, so keep your thinking hats on. To watch a Carla Simón film is to be plunged gently but entirely into rich microcosms by a director acutely aware of the social and geographical textures of a time and a place. Her films are deeply affecting examinations of the elastic nature of memory, with Simón most interested in capturing the intricate fabric of familiar relationships molded by the intimacy of time and suddenly reworked by life's tricky, unpredictable hands. She first broke out in 2017 with Summer 1993, going on to win the Golden Bear for Alcaraz in 2022, and Romería premiered in competition at Cannes last year. Kleber Mendonça Filho, a critic turned filmmaker, is a director whose encyclopedic knowledge of cinema allows for an anthropophagic filmmaking, a cinema that feeds on the greats and spits out something entirely new and autorial. His work often chews at the fractures that make up the delicate patchwork of Brazilian society, traversing genres to investigate themes of community, colonization, and history. Filho's first fiction feature film, Neighboring Sound, world premiere here in Rotterdam almost exactly 14 years ago, and his latest, the Cannes-winning The Secret Agent, has just landed a whopping 4 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Please help me welcome to the stage Carla Simón and Kleber Mendonça Filho. First of all, congratulations, just to get this off of there.
Obrigado.
I think a really good place to start is to emphasize that this is a conversation between filmmakers, so I do hope that you guys ask each other questions. Interrupt me at any given point, it will be my pleasure. But let's start with cinema itself. I am wondering if you have a memory, a first memory of the first time you felt curious or you felt a sense of fascination and awe with cinema. How did that relationship begin? Carla, if you want to start.
Yes, well, first of all, hello, everyone. I'm very happy, and thank you for the invitation. I think I grew up in a house in the countryside, so we didn't watch a lot of films. In my childhood, I saw like a lot of Disney, basically, and what I remember is the day that I discovered that cartoons didn't exist, which was really disappointing. You know, I was watching, I think it was Bambi, you say Bambi, right? And we were talking with my friend, and at some point, I don't know what I was saying, but she was like, what do you mean? You believe that this world exists? And I was like, of course, like somewhere, I don't know where, somewhere close, I hope. And then she basically told me the secret, that it didn't exist. And I remember like how it affected me, you know, the fact that I really wanted to. It was like kind of when you find out about the three kings, magic kings, no? I don't know if this is everywhere in the world, but there is this, it's like a kind of Christmas father thing that when you find out that he doesn't exist, it's really disappointing. So I had the same feeling, basically. Yeah, so I think that this started some kind of curiosity on me somehow.
Well, thank you for the question, but it's a very tough question to answer because I remember, as far back as I can remember, I was always very curious about films, I think. I was lucky because my mother was a cinephile, and for many years she told me about a film that she had seen by this director called Alfred Hitchcock. And she didn't remember the title of the film, but she kept going on about a staircase, stairs, and this woman, and she goes up to the top of the stairs, and then she falls, and and then there was music, and then for many years she would tell me about this film, which many, many years later I came to realize that it was, of course, Vertigo. So that's just one example of the idea of cinema which wasn't even presented or projected, it was spoken about. And I thought that was one of my earliest memories. But of course I can remember going to the cinema to see a Tom and Jerry marathon many, many years ago. So that is probably my official first trip to the cinema. And because I did a lot of research for Pictures of Ghosts, my previous film, I finally discovered the date. It was in 1973, because I saw the Tom and Jerry marathon at the Saint Louis Cinema, which is featured in Secret Agent, of course, as a character. But I think it really came from the excitement that my own mother gave me about cinema. And that's one way of answering your question.
Tom and Jerry, which of course don't exist either. I'm so sorry to let you know.
Yeah, what a pity.
And to go back to your work, do you guys remember the first time that you came across each other in the industry? The first time you saw a film by one another? Carla, do you remember first coming across Kleber's work?
Yeah, I totally remember. It was through my co-writer of Alcaraz. We were starting to write Alcaraz, and he said, "You really have to see this film because it has a lot to do with what we are writing." And it was Aquarius. So of course, like I was really touched, and it had all this thing in common about like what happens when you have to leave a place, no? So yeah, this character from time to time came to us while we were writing. So it was a big inspiration.
Yeah, that's beautiful. We have a festival in Recife called Janela, and Luis Fernando Moura, who was the programmer at the time, he saw Verão de 93, summer of 93, and he said, "I think you should see this film," and he had a link on Festival Scope, and that's how I saw it, and then we programmed Verão de 93 in our festival in 2017, I think. That was the first time I heard from you, about you, and the second time was when Said Ben Said, with whom we had worked twice, a French producer, he was at the jury in Berlin, and he gave you, well, the jury gave you the Golden Bear.
And I'm really curious to what interests you to the dynamics of these particular relationships and when they are messy and imperfect on screen. And I'll start with you, Kleber.
Well, I made Neighboring Sounds when I was not yet a father. And by Aquarius, I had become a father. But of course, I was a son and I was a child at some point, and I believe I wrote a lot of my experience not only as a child, but as an observer of friends who had children, and of course the neighbors' children. And all of that understanding, I think, went into the kids in Neighboring Sounds, au Som Redor. And I'm fascinated by children, of course. I'm fascinated by children in real life, and I'm also fascinated by them, how to capture them, how to shoot them with a camera, how to have them in a dramatic situation, which was designed by an adult, but which should feel lifelike and natural and organic for a child, which I think is a very tricky thing, because I believe some films, they often have children play in situations which are not natural, I think, only because that's what's required of them in a film. But in Aquarius, we had two babies. They were about 2 years old or just before 2. And I have to say that something I don't think you can, hopefully you can't see it in the films, but I think the feeling changed, and writing about the messy, not always easy connections between parents and children, from a lot of what I could observe in my own family and of course in other families, that's what instructed me in terms of writing the situations. And Sonia, the wonderful Sonia Braga, of course, she did not have kids, but she herself could relate to many of those situations which are connected to how one projects yourself into your kids, and how maybe one of the kids will not really see eye to eye with you, which is the case of her daughter in the film, played by Maeva Jenkins. The two male kids, they're more mellow in terms of their relationship to the mother. Yeah, but that's a very long sequence, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. It goes into many different places, all the way up and all the way down. Yeah.
I really wish we could sit here and watch like 40 minutes of clips. It was very, very hard to cut down the clips. And to you, Carla.
Yeah, I just feel, I don't know, like family relationships in general are very interesting because we don't choose them and we have them since we are born. So they always have a history somehow. And, you know, and now that I also became a mom, what you realize is that you do what you can, basically, you know, and it's so hard to raise a child that obviously it's never perfect, no? So I think that it's a really kind of interesting relationship to portray. And for me, with children, they have this amazing thing of discover the world for the first time, no? Now I have a very little baby, and I think sometimes, like, when we are home, like if an elephant went into like the house right now, it would be normal for her, you know? So because, why not? So everything is why not with them, no? Like they are kind of discovering everything and they accept the mystery of life in a more like okay way than we do sometimes, no? And I feel that the approach and the look to the world that kids have, it's very similar to the way like the audience sit in front of a film somehow, no? Because we sit down and we are open to discover a universe, and bit by bit, no, with this mystery. And if we talk about mystery, I think your films have a lot of mystery, no? And we keep discovering. Sometimes we want to know quicker. Sometimes we are patient, no? But we have this kind of look and that they have, that I think it's a very similar experience. That's why I think that it's so interesting to portray children in film, because they give you this look in a very natural way, no? I love like watching kids watch or filming kids watching, no? And I think that for me there is something very magical about filming with kids, that it's like when you try to find a kind of naturalistic acting, no, something that it's alive or keeps alive, they give you that, because they are never going to give you two takes in the same way. And this, for some directors, may be a problem. For me, it's a great thing, no? When you feel that you have someone that is in the moment that they are playing, but you don't know what they are going to do or exactly what they are going to do, no? So if you kind of have some flexibility to work with them, there's always interesting things that come up. And then I think that usually they also make adults better actors somehow, because, yeah, because the adults kind of forget about themselves when they are in set, because they have to kind of be with the child, no? And this kind of, suddenly, I don't know why, it's a good thing somehow, no? And they are also more in the moment.
We just had, when we made The Secret Agent in 24, we looked at some kids. Of course, we ended up choosing a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful boy, Enzo. But we had the feeling that 2 or 3 other kids, they had already been trained in the influencer school. of acting to the camera. And I found it so disturbing to see those wonderful kids already changed by whatever market industrial needs that a child should offer to the modern image. It wasn't just a kid, it was a TV kid, it was a television, it was an internet kid. And then we worked with Enzo, who was just a wonderful boy and very expressive in his... It's funny to even use the word, which it is, naturalism, but that's who he is. He was just a boy, you know.
Yeah, because you can capture like a genuine gesture and they are not conscious of what they are doing, besides that kids that you say. Like I remember once I did a casting to a girl who came in and said, that girl who just came out, she's my enemy. And I was like, why?
Enemy?
Enemy? And yeah, and she said because they were like meeting in all the castings that they were doing.
Like a rival, yeah?
Yes, yes. Yes, I don't know if I translate well, but in any case, I was like, wow, she was really like 7 or 8. So I try to not get the kids that come from an agency, basically, and go to schools and to, you know, places where they are not.
No enemies in our films.
No, no, please.
It's interesting that you mentioned the word responsibility, because obviously working with children also changes the logistics of a set. There are different hours, you're working differently. I know, Carla, you had such an interesting process casting the little girl in Summer 1993, where you were trying to find someone who resembled you with the character instead of the other way around. So how does it change your logistics of filmmaking? How does it affect that, working with children? I'll go back to you, Carla, because the Summer 1993 casting is really, really interesting, actually.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me it's very important that when we cast children, you find kids who are very similar to the character, because you can ask an adult or an actor to create a character, but children don't even know who they are yet, you know, so you really have to find someone who kind of you already see in your film without doing anything, just being or playing, no? So this is very useful. And then what we do is to rehearse a lot, not the film. We spend a lot of time together in kind of improvising moments that could have happened before the story that the film is gonna tell, to create the intimacy that you would feel in a family, no? And to kind of make sure that the children are gonna believe this world, no? Because also getting into a set and saying, okay, that's your dad, it doesn't work like that, no? So you have to create these relationships. And for me, all this rehearsing time helps to kind of understand like how they work, and also their needs, if they fear something, if they love something, you know, and you can kind of get them involved in a real way, no, and to get to understand what it means making a film. And then I don't know how it is in Brazil, like we have strict hours, like for summer, we shot 6 weeks and we could only shoot 6 hours per day with the girls, which was a nightmare. So like all the crew would go before, get ready, they come, we shoot very fast, and then they leave, no? But it's, it adds a little bit of pressure, but at the same time it adds a lot of focus. So you have to make sure that you have a crew who understands that the priority are the children, which is, it sounds obvious, but not all the crew is always okay with that, no?
And for you, the logistics of shooting with children, does it change the way you operate? Is it similar to what Carla was saying?
Well, yes, there is a very specific set of logistics, and the logistics can be broken down into the logistics, which is, you know, the hours and how we're going to do this because of the children. But in Bacurau, for example, there was a second type of logistics. Bacurau, of course, is a very violent picture, and it takes place a few years into the future, and it's very much about genocide. So there is one very difficult sequence in the film where a child is killed. So what do? I shot on a Monday evening with the children, and it was like a huge game. It was a lot of fun, and it was all about the dark, you know, going into the dark and playing with lights And I would hide behind the bush and go boo like this. And it was a lot of fun. It was wonderful. And I got the shots, the very important shots of the kid reacting. On the following evening, when the kids were 50 kilometers away, I shot the counter shot with the killer. So they were never in the same evening. They were never together in the same evening. There was no idea that they could identify of violence, and the violence only happened in the editing. So that's one way of, and that's one way of dealing with a potentially difficult situation, but it's, at the end of the day, it's all cinema. It's all shots and editing and sound effects and suggestion. So, yeah, but it is always a challenge, and it's always a wonderful experience, I think, to work with kids. It's something that I really look forward whenever there are children in my scripts.
So I want to start with you, Kleber. How does casting work for you? I know both of you have experience with non-actors as well. So how do you go about that?
Well, since Neighboring Sounds, one thing that I always have in mind is that a film is always a great opportunity to show faces. And I really think that once you show faces, I think you're also talking a lot about the society where you come from. My country, Brazil, has amazing faces, I think. It has the diversity of faces is just phenomenal. It's just part of who we are. We are a mix of many, many different things. And anyone who tries to prove otherwise has a problem. And unfortunately, we still have people who believe that Brazilians look one certain way. Just this week, we had a governor in the south of Brazil saying that the whole of that state is white, which is not true. And I think showing faces is one of the most beautiful things, not only in Brazilian films. When I watch, for example, a British film, you can watch Howard's End by Merchant and Ivory and say, well, that's one way of looking at Britain. But you can also look at Alan Clarke's work and say, that's another way of looking at Britain. Look at these faces. I remember seeing Sergei Loznitsa's film, My Joy, back in 2010. And I was very impressed by the use of faces in that film. It's almost like an amazing collection of human types in what was once the Soviet Union, out of Ukraine. And it's just a fascinating use of faces. And this is something that, I've done extensively in Neighboring Sounds, in Aquarius, and Bacurau, of course, and in The Secret Agent. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't really make any difference between what is often referred to as non-professional actors or I have a problem with non-actor because I think they're all actors and they're all great actors. And when you have one of these great actors who don't have a lot of experience doing so well, take after take, and hitting their marks and just being great. Of course, I think they are actors. The Secret Agent has 60+ characters with lines, and then I had a very experienced actor and a star, an international star, Wagner Moura, and he was very important in making that whole ensemble work, because from the 16-year-old boy who plays Clovis, who had never done anything, to Tânia Maria, who was discovered at 73 in Bacurau, and now at 78 she plays a very important role in The Secret Agent. Everything came together also because there was a main actor who really believes in generosity. So that's a very important aspect of working with so many people. And when I see Carla's lunch sequence, I think it says a lot about the faces of Spain, or the faces of one Spain, and I find it incredibly moving. So I think each film you make, you tell a story, whatever the story is, and you put together a number of ideas. But of course, I think each film is a wonderful opportunity to show the faces of where you come from. And I happen to come from a country which has the greatest faces.
I agree. I just want to point out...
She's also Brazilian.
I also want to point out very briefly before we move to Carla that The Secret Agent got nominated for Best Casting. It is a new category at the Oscars. It's an incredible work that was done with the film, so congratulations. And
Thank you.
Carla.
Yeah, no, I think it's very interesting what you are saying, because usually, I mean, I would say that usually you don't see films like yours in that sense. So usually there are many films that, because they are played by actors who have interesting faces, but they are like what an actor should be, let's say, you know? So what happens is that when you mix actors and, let's say, I like call them natural actors. Non-actors, it's like natural people, no? When you have a mix, you get a sense of like a place as well, no? In a country, in a, I don't know if it would be called like real way, but in a not so much like film way, no? And I think that this talks a lot about probably your sensitivity towards the world, no? And why you pick these faces and not other faces. But I agree that there is something in all your films that that have this thing, and also because they are very ensemble pieces. So, but you need like just few screen time for you to get interested in one character, no? And this is what makes it's thanks of a great face, of course, but not only face, it's just like the presence and the essence of these people that sometimes it's not if they are good or bad actors, it's like who they are, no? I don't know how to say it. But yeah, I find that when you get the chance to mix professional and natural actors, things become very interesting in that sense, no? And also, you have to make sure that the actors you work with are open to do that, no? In terms of like generosity, and also in terms of the way you need to work, no? Because it's not exactly, like, honestly, I have never worked only with actors, so I don't know how it is. But for me, it's quite the same when you work with natural actors or actors when it comes to kind of build their relationships, their history, because I believe a lot in emotional memory, and I think that if you go through things that the characters have lived and they kind of improvise these scenes and do it, there is something that stays on them, in their body, that then when you do it on the screen and when you shoot the film, you kind of see it, no? And for me, this is something that I started to try only with natural actors, and at some point I was like, why don't we just do it with everyone? Because I think that for maybe actors are not so used to kind of do this journey of just like playing scenes that are not in the film but could have happened before, no? But then if they get into the game, they end up feeling feeling everything stronger, no? And also the relationships between them. And I think that, I don't know how you work with actors when you rehearse. That's the question I have for you, because what I feel also in the relationships is that there is something strong besides, what I don't know how you have gotten there and how you build it, but in general, the relationships that you portray are kind of, I would say strong.
Well, I really like to rehearse. Usually I have a month before we begin to shoot. Because it's very important for me anyway, to understand if the scenes written into the script, they are dramatically alive. Because some scene might not work. It might be a bad scene. So it's really interesting to see the scene happening for the first time in a rehearsal room. And that's when not only I get more confident, but the actors get more confident. And we're going to discuss our own connections to behavior and how we behave and how we react to the scene. And it's just a wonderful process. And some colleagues and friends, they do not like to rehearse. I would be very nervous if I went to shoot without knowing if that scene is a good scene, if the actor is comfortable with the scene. And so, yeah, the other thing, every time we're looking for people to work in a film, you know, the casting process, that's when you open a window and you begin to understand the pressures that come from the industry, because there are agencies and you begin to understand what television is doing, what series are doing, what publicity is doing. And there's a lot of pressure on us making the film to accept and to look at certain actors for certain roles. The pressure doesn't necessarily work on us, but it is a little tense. By the way, I have Émilie Lesclos, the producer of the film. She's over there. Émilie? So there is still this outdated way of looking at actors and actresses as in good looking, which is something that I find really old, because you might have a beautiful cast, but it's not necessarily connected to good looks. You can have an amazingly beautiful cast, but it's not necessarily connected to the publicity, to the way that a certain product is sold. And sometimes you just fall in love with an actor or an actress because he or she is so amazing and you want her to be in the film. And it just happens that he or she is not a professional actor. And sometimes I had to convince someone that he would be great working in the film. And with the rehearsal, it worked, and it was a wonderful experience. But the casting process, if you want to keep it real and honest, you really have to avoid a lot of pressure that you get in terms of, casting. It's not about good looks. It's about something else.
Yeah, and about famous actors as well. Sometimes you have to have someone famous. And it's like, how famous? Because, usually it happens to me that I don't know, sometimes I feel that maybe I'm weird, but it happens to me that when I cast someone, I'm looking for something that sometimes I cannot even tell, so you just feel it or not. And for me, it's not about like the films they've done or or also good looking or not good looking. It's something that that if this person is like kind of close to the character I wrote, or if it has something that it's really getting me. It's something really difficult to describe, like why you pick someone in a casting.
What you're saying, I mentioned Émilie as a producer. She takes a lot of the pressure. But also Gabriel Dominguez, who's now nominated for an Oscar, we've been working for 3 films now. He takes a lot of pressure. And he knows the kinds of actors we want to work with. So it's always very tough to get so much pressure from the industry.
And Carla, you mentioned something that is key here, which is how the cast and how the actors reflect the places where you're telling these stories. And both of you are filmmakers deeply connected to the place where you're shooting. Kleber, you told me something so interesting the last time we spoke, because you keep getting people asking you why Recife, and you said, of course, that is my home. It would be weird if I made 4 films in Marrakesh, which is true. And I
love Marrakesh, by the way.
Yeah, maybe next one? But I just want you to talk a little bit more about the sense of place, because obviously with you, Carla, there's the Catalan element of your films, even though Romería goes to Galicia, is still very present there, and Kleber obviously with Recife. So can we touch upon the idea of a place influencing the story and how you incorporate it in your filmmaking from a creative point of view? Do you want to start, Carla?
Yeah, I mean, basically we live in, as a society in a place that it really kind of marks who we are, and it's I think that these are two things that I cannot just put apart, like where we come from, our space, the place, the history, the context, and I really believe that, because I write usually from the characters, in a really small way of thinking, about the families, but always at some point the context comes in and takes even the film, like you realize that every intimate thing is very political, and I don't know, I think that it has to do with trying to go deep, in the stories you tell, and if you go deep, the place comes somehow, I think that this is beautiful when you find you discover a director and who, like who has shot so much in your city, and then suddenly it's like you've been there somehow through your films and even to your house, and you end up knowing so much about this place thanks to someone's films, because they have portrayed this, and this happens with some. Not every director has this like commitment to their place, but for me it also comes in a very natural way. Also, I make films about my families, so it would be weird that I also do it in Marrakesh, So somehow I got all this all the time the question, why in Catalan, and it's like because it's my language, like it would be very strange that I do it in Spanish actually, because in my house I speak every day in Catalan, and I was raised in Catalan, so somehow it's a very natural thing,
Is there some kind of tension that you get from a film spoken in Catalan?
There is tension.
In terms of Spain, is there some tension?
Yeah,
the way the film is received?
There is political tension always between Catalonia and Spain. Now it's more calm, but this question about why do you make a film in Catalan if you make it in Spanish, everyone will understand it, And for me, it's like I don't know, because you can put subtitles basically, and everyone will understand it.
You can dub it in Spanish
as well. Actually, you always have to do it, which is a terrible thing, but we have to do it. But yeah, there is some tension in terms of distribution. In terms of distribution, it's like if you do it in Spanish, it's easier. If you do it in Catalan and you don't want to dub it, then you cannot go to all the cinemas, only on the cinemas that they have subtitles, which is not all of them. But then obviously you can dub them, and then it can be played everywhere, So I think it's not a big deal, but sometimes the industry kind of treats it as if it was something. But now in Spain, we have like Spanish and 3 more languages, the Basque, the Galician, and the Catalan. And I think that we are in a beautiful moment because we understood that that diversity is good, actually.
Yeah. Well, I come from a city, Recife, which is very well established culturally, and music and literature and film, and for many years. But to this day, actors and actresses from Recife, they go to the southeast to work on television or commercials and work as actors. And to this day, they still have to go through a special treatment to lose their accents. And that I find incredibly 40 years ago, And now we're beginning to see, because there are 2 very practical examples. One is Tomás de Aquino, who worked with me in Bacurau. He's an actor in Bacurau, and he's also in Secret Agent. And the other is Alice Carvalho, who has 1 scene in Secret Agent. She plays Wagner's wife. And they are having a pretty good career in the Southeast. And as far as I can tell, they are getting to keep their accents. So maybe there is some optimistic development there. But this is one of the things that I find, and I think it plays an important role in a decision for casting. Because how can I cast someone in the little village of Bacurau with an accent from the south or the southeast? So that would be very important for me. And it's not common for actors to do accents like Australians do great American accents and the Brits do great American accents. I don't really see a lot of that in the Brazilian acting landscape. So I'm very much for authentic speaking, accents.
Yes, actually, for me, one of the reasons why Alcaraz is played by non-professional or natural actors is because of the accent in Catalan. And we had this conversation with my producer. She was like, but who will notice, because like Catalan is spoken by like 6 million people. And I was like,
that's a lot.
I will not. Yeah, it's a lot. It's enough, no? And I was like, I will notice, no? It's like, for me, it's also talking about the place, the accent, no? So if you want to keep this, it didn't make any sense to have like an actor from Barcelona coming to the countryside, trying to do this accent weirdly, no? And also trying to be a farmer. So at the end, we ended up going with people from this place.
It's interesting because maybe our generation or the generation of younger, I mean, I think we're more attached to this authenticity because in the old days, of course, cinema was so theatrical in a way, and you could have Marilyn Monroe playing a British character. I'm just a crazy example. But you could go in crazy ways just because it was cinema, which is interesting, but at the end of the day, I really like to mix extreme realism with extreme cinema at some point. And that mix for me is wonderful.
Yeah. No, and at the end it's like, because we had this thing of, okay, so it's a convention at the end, no? This is cinema, so you talk this way, and it happens also on the way the actors talk, no? On the way that the script is written. And when you try to, I think that now modern cinema, this is changing a lot, and it's happened, I think, everywhere in the world, no?
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting with Romería, Carla, that you had your mother's letters, you had this physical written piece of archive that you could work from with Romería, and you, Kleber, with Pictures of Ghosts, you had this wealth of images and videos that came to somewhat inform as well the secret agents. So both of you are working with memory both creatively and metaphorically in your films, which is really interesting. So I just wanted to touch upon that, the idea of working with archive and memory in your films. Kleber, do you want to start?
Well, I think from kind of an early stage, even before I was really making my films, I really saw films as archives themselves. Each new film is a piece of archive, which will be hopefully preserved and sent to a cinematheque and to an archive or many archives. And I think I'm very much aware of this. Even when we watch something we take for granted, like a commercial comedy, a romantic comedy in a multiplex, that should be kept because in 30, 50, 70 years, it might be even more interesting than it already was. And I don't know, I'm the son of a historian, and I grew up listening to stories of, listening to how my mother worked with oral history, and she always carried a tape recorder, a Panasonic one, which is precisely the one I use in the same model that I use in The Secret Agent. And I think The Secret Agent is full of bits and pieces of archive, bits of paper, newspaper, drawings, audio, little notes, photographs, of course, and all of this, I think, are interesting storytelling devices. Much like the same way we use them in our lives, these days it's so common for us to do this. Oh, take a look at this, and it's a telephone with an image or a video, and yeah, I'm just fascinated by cinema as a piece of archive. When I finished Pictures of Ghosts, it was 7 years working on that film with I don't know how many hundreds of little pieces of video film and paper, newspapers and Super 8 and all kinds of video formats. And all of that was put together and became Pictures of Ghosts, my film. And then it was very clear to me that now that film was a new piece of archive. And it was being sent to the Cinemateca in Brazil and to be kept. We even did a 35 millimeter print for it. So I think everything we do, and I'm sure there are many filmmakers in this room, people who work with film, we're all producing material for the future. Sometimes we don't really think about that, but that's what it is. The films we make should be interesting right now because that's when we're living. We are people from the present. But in the future, we will be people from the future. And hopefully, even this conversation we're having tonight will be accessed in the future. And, you know, let's say in 200 years, and we'll all be gone by then, I'm sure. And somebody will be listening in the future and saying, oh, that was interesting shoes, you know?
It was so well moderated. And to you, Carla.
Yeah, I just have to say that it was very touching to see this character of your two films, For Real and In Fiction, together, you know, because I kind of imagined that it was someone, I mean, it was the same person, but wow, you really made a great job to kind of bring him alive, basically, you know? And at the end, cinema is for that as well, you know, to kind of like bring alive all those who died somehow, no? It gives us this opportunity, and for me, Romería was a little bit like that, no? I think that I'm always very worried about memory because I lost my parents when I was a kid. So I always had this thing, and I still have, no, about time passing, and what happens of when you ask yourself questions and you cannot get an answer because the people that you would like to ask them are not here anymore, no? And memory works in a very fascinating way, no? Like we don't remember the fact, we remember the last time we remember it, which means that in our own mind, it kind of keeps changing all the time. That's why archive is so important, because at least it's kind of objective, no? Like you watch it and it's what it is. But I always think also that even with homemade videos, no, that it's something very direct. We kind of choose as well what we shoot and what we don't in our family. And now that I have kids, sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna switch off because he's shouting, or you know. So sometimes it's like you even edit reality to thinking of like what's gonna happen when you watch it later, no. So I think that for me, Romería is a film that is born out of the frustration that I felt to not being able to access my parents' memory and their love stories and to know enough. No, also they died of AIDS, which means that, you know, there's this big stigma, taboo. Nobody really talks in the same. I mean, basically, when you try to make the puzzle, it just doesn't fit, no? So it gave me the opportunity to create these images that I never had from them, no? And it was amazing. Like, it's true that when you are shooting, and I don't know how it is for you when you do things about that are very emotional to you, but sometimes you are very focused, you know, and you are not at the moment to get too emotional. But now when I see it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, I had these two actors basically being my parents, no? So I think that cinema also helps to kind of play with time, no? And to kind of immortalize people. You know how we convinced the actor for Alcaraz to come? It was a friend of him who said, if you do the film, they will immortalize you, so go and do it, you know? So at the end, it's that you just capture a moment that it's never gonna come back. And I think that when we make film, there is also something about that, and sometimes I feel that my fear of death is kind of being like put in an okay place in my body because of the filmmaking.
You know, David Cronenberg said that cinema is a cemetery, and I think it's a beautiful thing. And with that, let's throw it to the audience, please. We have someone with microphones that is going to reach out to you, and I'm going to try and see you and go to you. Okay, where's my microphone person so I know? There we go. Should we go? Can you raise your hand if you have a question, please? Okay, can we go there in the middle? The guy with the black shirt, please.
Thank you. First of all, congratulations, both Carla and Kleber, for the amazing movies and very authentic and realistic, as you mentioned in the talk. As a viewer, I really love this feeling that I forget I'm watching a movie, and then I just remember after the end. So I have this feeling with both of you. My question goes to Kleber. It's actually two questions, but they are very short. If you had to choose one movie out of all the films that you have done in your career, which one did you enjoy more the process of making it, and which one you faced the biggest challenge? And yeah, please.
Well, first of all, I have a very healthy, loving relationship to my films. I gave everything I could to each and every one of them. I never abandoned them. They were never taken away from me. The films, if you happen to see them, they are exactly the films I wanted to make, with no regrets. I can very safely and honestly tell you. Some people ask me, even now with The Secret Agent, when are you going to release a director's cut? All my films are my director's cuts. That's what I did, and I'm happy with them. So I would never really choose like my favorite film. Even the short films, actually, which I showed in Rotterdam many years ago. But the most challenging, they are all very, very challenging. A film is like somebody saying, well, here is our wonderful supermarket. You can have everything for free, but you have 2 minutes. Good luck. And that's, I think, it's one way of looking at filmmaking. And it's always a huge challenge. The Secret Agent, we shot like maniacs, but everything, it's always like that. The other films, it was the same thing. But to give you a proper answer, the most challenging, physically insane film we did was Bacurau, I think. I think it was really intense because it was 500 kilometers in the outback, in the Sertão. It was a beautiful but difficult location. We had to drive 1 hour to get to the location every day and go back at the end of the day. And it was very intense. But no regrets. It was also a wonderful film to do. And I have many good memories of it.
Before going to the next question, I just want to point out that it's lovely when a director gets to say that, and it's a lot of it thanks to a very good producer. So, yeah, Emily Liskell once more, Oscar-nominated producer Emily Liskell.
Yes.
Okay. Next question, please, if someone can raise their hands. Can we go here, please?
I'd just like to point something out. We have Tiago Melo here. He has a film in competition.
Yeah.
Yellow Cake. And we are very proud associate producers on Yellow Cake, which is screening this week.
So hi Kleber, hi Carla, congratulations with the beautiful career and inspiration that you're bringing to us every time. And to be very short, you both transit a little bit in between writing, directing, and sometimes even acting, like in Pictures of Ghosts. So I would like to ask you, what is the distance and what is like the connection that you need to keep as in different roles? Also like, yeah, towards the crew, but also towards like the industry. So how is it for you?
What is the connection?
Having different roles within filmmaking, what are the difficulties? Yeah, the difficulties or the differences between?
Yeah, the difference, because like you write your own scripts, and as a script writer, you have like some kind of connection with the actors, also with the market, and then you start to direct it. And sometimes you direct yourself, like sitting on the back of the car. So like, how does it change like your roles and your view into what you're doing? Like, what are the layers maybe, like you're very oniric, so you go into dreaming and into death and into time. So I'm just like very curious how you shift from one shape to the other.
You want to go, Carla?
Yeah, I mean, so somehow like writing is a very like lonely moment. I mean, even if you write with someone, comparing to when you are shooting as a director, no, that you are with a crew and many people, and it totally changes. And that's why I love filmmaking, because it's like in each phase, no, of making the film, because then also it comes editing, which is again, you are in a dark room suddenly, no. In each phase of the film is very different, no, your role and what you do. But as like in the creative process, for me, the beautiful thing about writing is that everything can be, you know, and you are in your ideas. And usually I always write as if I was not gonna shoot it, you know, and then I'm like, how we are gonna do that, no? But then I think that it's very important when you are writing to kind of start like thinking about how you are gonna direct. Like I really cannot make a difference, you know, between both, because while I'm writing, sometimes like I need to start thinking about actors, I need to start thinking about the language I'm gonna use, no? And I need to think very clearly about what, like the challenges I want to put myself for this new film, you know? And then when you are shooting, I mean, when you are prepping, which is like, you know, even more the time when you are directing, you usually spend more time prepping than actually directing the film, no? Is when everything gets concrete, you know, and you can take your decisions slowly. And then the shooting for me, it's always a little bit traumatic, because you have to take like many decisions per second, you know, and now I'm getting better in trying to kind of enjoying it, you know. But yeah, for me, it's the shooting part is hard, but at the same time, it's where everything happens, you know. So you have all this pressure, and you have to trust everything that you created before, no?
Yeah, I also don't really. I have a problem establishing boundaries, because I happen to really enjoy every part of the process. I really do. I love mixing the sound in the film. I'm also an editor. I write the script, but maybe to give you a very kind of practical example is, and I don't think I would be able to do that from the stories I hear from Hollywood, because in Hollywood you have the writer and then you have the director, and then from what I understand in Hollywood, the writer is always on set. So instead of the character saying, "Get this piece of shit away from me," and if I want him to say, "Get this wonderful person away from me," I have to consult with the writer. And in my films, I'm always giving the actors new lines, or maybe things that occur to me because of him or her, maybe because of the way she speaks, and I'm always giving new lines. And the actors actually love this, because they go, "Oh, really? Oh, yeah, that's good." And then they redo the scene, and I really enjoy this freedom, you know. So I don't really see. Once I begin the project, I wear many hats, and I enjoy wearing many hats. You know.
Unfortunately, this is all that we have the time for. I just want to take a moment to really thank both of you for being so generous. I love your films. I'm pretty sure everyone here loves your films. Get to see them on the big screen while you can. Thank you so much, Rotterdam. What a beautiful festival.
Thank you very much.
Have a really good evening.
Thank you very much.